Hello, everyone. Welcome to a special mental health mini. We are recording this for World Mental Health Day 2025. I am absolutely thrilled and delighted that we are joined by Declan Rudd of Norwich City, both ex-professional goalkeeper and now goalkeeping coach. Declan, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Just obviously, most people will know who you are, but there'll be a couple that won't have seen your career. Do you want to give like a 2 second explanation of yourself?
Yeah, born in Norwich, from Norwich, Norwich fan as a kid. Came through the academy, lived my dream by playing for the club. Fortunately, had to move on. Went and played for Preston for 5 years and had a career-ending injury at the age of 30. So there you go. That's a quick explanation.
No, that's fine. I'll give some of our potentially more younger viewers who aren't aware of your career with the club an intro to yourself. So, as always with these, we kind of pose three questions to you to kind of get your background and try and help people. So let's jump straight in. And obviously, you mentioned there, and one of the reasons we're talking today is we're about mental health, and obviously for a footballer, injuries are a big part of how that can affect you. And you talk about your career-ending one. So, kind of, what were your experiences around both coming up through the ranks, playing professional football, having that time, and then having it kind of taken away from you without meaning to be too blunt?
Yeah. Well, when you're younger and you come through and you start playing for your club that you're a fan of as a kid, like everything's amazing, and fans seem to give you that bit of time to settle in, and you're the young lad coming through, prospect of the academy, everything's all great. You then get a little bit older, and things get a bit tough, and especially when the club is in probably the biggest league in the world, and um, we're not one of the bigger clubs in that league, and things get hard, and you're a young local lad, and you're conceding 3, 4, 5 goals a week, and all you can think about is what people are saying to your parents, to your family, to your wife, your girlfriend, whoever it is. What are they saying about how bad you played, or what was you doing when they go to work on a Monday? And I think that's the hardest thing to deal with as being a local lad playing for your local team is everyone else goes to work and lives around that area, and there's no getting away from it. And I think that piles a lot of pressure on yourself to maybe thinking about other people dealing with the rubbish other than you is quite hard to deal with.
And we've spoken to a couple of people about this sort of thing. Leon McKenzie mentioned it. When you're playing brilliantly, everyone's behind you, and when you're not, I can only imagine that they're on your back. I mean, I don't know how prevalent social media would have been when you were coming through the ranks, but are you on social media? Did you end up seeing what people may or may not have said?
Yeah, no, the one I never had Twitter when it was around before it was X, but I would still, after every game, look at my phone, search my name, and see what people were saying about me, which is the worst thing that anyone could ever do. But I think you sort of, as a young lad, you want to know that everybody's behind you, everybody's backing you, and you don't want to let people down. So you want to see what people are saying. And it you can read 20, 30 really positive points, and then there's one person says something negative about you, and that's the only thing you'll remember. And I try and install it now as a coach. I think it's one of the main reasons I've wanted to become a coach is to help teach them all the things that affected me and affected my game, and try and help them learn. And most of it is off the pitch, especially as a goalkeeper. Like you said, you could actually have an unbelievable game. One slips through your hands, goes in the last minute, and you lose the game, and all of a sudden you're a villain. And that's the hardest part of being a goalkeeper. You could go from on a run of form where you've had 3 clean sheets in 5, 6 games and playing really well, and then you go and have one bad game, and then it's right. We need the goalie out. He's rubbish. So I think you are alone on the pitch, and the hardest thing I think for goalkeepers is unless you're a specialist and you've been a goalkeeper, or you're a goalkeeper coach, or you've lived the career of a goalkeeper, you don't actually understand goalkeeping. And I think that's the hardest thing to deal with because people think they know it all and really they don't. But you still want to listen to what they're saying, which sounds crazy. But Unfortunately, that's how my mind worked at the time.
I mean, I can't ever say that I know what it feels like to be a goalkeeper. I did go to school with John Ruddy, and I like even at school you would see that kind of he was for one of the last line of defense, and if it didn't go well, he would sort of get the blame then, and you see it nowadays in professional football, and it's not fair, but it's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah,
Um,
100%. I mean, you see the pundits all the time saying, "Oh, the keeper come and flapped at that," or "Oh, it was a great height for a goalkeeper." All them sayings that they use, but um, unless you really know the details, the techniques, and the specific details that go into being a goalkeeper, you just can't understand it. But the problem is, you still want to listen to them people and take in the negative stuff they're saying about you.
Yeah, and I mean, not just being a goalkeeper, but even in everyday walks of life. I mean, I'm not a professional footballer. I work in software development, and even then, when someone picks at something you've done, it can feel very personal. And I don't ever think I've got the same pressure as you ever did. Don't worry, but it can have an effect. So obviously you came through the club. You had all that, and then sort of five sort of I would assume what 25, 26 years of age, you're then told, okay, Preston and all that. How did that go down, having to leave your club? How did that make you feel?
It was really hard because in between that, I had a loan spell at Charlton as well. So I'd gone off the back of playing 12 games in the Premier League the following season to then coming in and being told that I'm not wanted by that current manager at the time and that I need to find another club. Um, and there just wasn't much out there for me. I really struggled. And luckily enough, Charlton took me. But I then went into a club that was in turmoil. There was protests before every game. They were stopping the game by throwing things on the pitch. It had a huge turnaround. I think there was like 25 players left and 23 brought in that pre-season. And it really, I'd gone from being on top of the world the year before, playing against Man United, Old Trafford, winning, to then going all the way down to League One to a club that was in a mess, if I'm being honest. Um, and it was a tough year. Just had the birth of my first child as well, so had all that. Yeah, it was a year that was tough, very tough.
And just to briefly touch on that, I mean, not to say this, that I've recently become a parent for the second time. Having kids is tough, just that on its own. Then you throw in the turmoil of moving to a club that's not doing well behind the scenes, let alone on the pitch. I can imagine that took its toll on you for a little bit.
Yeah, it was hard because I just wanted to make the best of a bad situation personally, from my career, and just get out and continue playing football because I knew as a player, if you're sort of out of the spotlight for a season, that could finish you. So I had to make the decision of dropping down two leagues and going to play. Um, but everything else that was going on, sort of off the pitch, and people always say that what goes on off the pitch with a club doesn't affect the players. I'm telling you right now, it does. It really does. So um, it's your job at the end of the day. If you was going into any other job every day and you're walking through protesters to get into the office, and then as you're there, you're getting things thrown at you whilst you're sitting at the computer or whatever it is you do. You're telling me that wouldn't affect you. So it does. And
Yeah.
although fans they have a voice and they're more than like so they should have. They pay the money to go and watch the games, but I think sometimes they don't realise the effects it has on players.
No, and I think frustration and football fans are passionate, and I think sometimes emotions get the best of us. And I've been guilty of booing at the end of a game when it's gone really against you, and I sort of and in my position I should know better because I come away from the game afterwards going shouldn't have done that, shouldn't have done that. That's not fair. Um, and even if you're not booing the players, obviously, as a Norwich fan, we've had times where we haven't agreed necessarily with the people running the club, and we've wanted to make our voices known. As fans, can't imagine the owners or the players of that sat particularly well, and it must affect you. And then you sort of then you went okay, then you went to Preston. And from what I understand from a friend of mine, you kind of you were doing well at Preston. Like the Preston fans were very much on your side. At least that's what I was told, anyway.
Yeah, listen,
So
my time of actual football at Preston was amazing. I thought the fans took me in. I had a loan spell there when I was 20 for a season and a half, um, and that went really well. And then to return back sort of 5 years later was great. I mean, it didn't feel like being at Norwich, but because I'd been there before and I knew everybody that worked at the club, you even get to know some of the fans, and they honestly took me in as if I'd come through at Preston. So my time there was amazing. Obviously, you have your spells where you hit a bad run of form and you're going to get stick, and it's all part of the job. And I think if you don't get that stick, it doesn't help you through it, if that makes any sense. Like it sort of pulls you through the bad times. Um,
yes, yeah.
Although it can go the other way. But at that time in my life, I'd then got two children, and I realised there was more to life and more important things than actual football, my family, and actual life itself. So you sort of take that in a completely different way. But yeah, moving up there, I mean, I had to uproot everyone, move 5 hours away, and but the football itself was great. I absolutely loved it there.
Um, I want to come back to what you touched on about realizing that there are more important things because it's a theme that we hear from sports people. I've a few I've spoken to, but before that, I've kind of if you're okay, I want to talk about your injury
Mm-hmm.
because obviously all of the playing that you've had, all of the positives, you will have had negatives with bad form and fans getting on your back, but ultimately you were doing something that many of us would die to do. It'd be amazing, and you've had that taken away from you through no fault of your own. No, like just how did that like? Can you talk me through what actually happened and how you felt, if you don't mind? Obviously,
Yeah, so
don't share if you don't want to.
no, I'm happy to share. So yeah, just a normal day's training. Literally got injured in the last set of the session. It was 2 minutes before the end, pretty much. So I got my injury. Knew it was bad. I had to get stretchered off. I had gas and air and everything. Rushed to hospital. Had a scan. At the time, I thought I dislocated my knee because it was locked. I couldn't move it. And it was just the meniscus had torn in half and flipped into the middle of my knee, and it was jarred. Unfortunately, with meniscus injuries, you're actually better off to do your ACL than do your meniscus. So when I heard that, I saw a specialist, and he basically said it's a flip of a coin whether you come back or not. So I done my 8-9 months rehab, and I got back fit and ready to start pre-season the following year. So I come back, started training after one session, knee was blowing up, couldn't train the next day, couldn't train the next day. But then 3 days later, I felt okay to train. So I trained, but again, swelling for the next 2 or 3 days. So I basically got through pre-season by training once, maybe twice a week and playing the Saturday pre-season games. Um, but I was so desperate to have a comeback that there was no way I was just going to give up. So first game of the season comes, I'm in the team, starting the season. 5 minutes into it, I get kicked in the head, get knocked out, and have to come off. So that was yeah, it was not the ideal comeback, to be honest.
What a couple of months for you.
Yeah. So yeah, then obviously training, and then it was the Carabao Cup games. Played one, and I just couldn't get through the game. I couldn't do it. I got to sort of 70 minutes and I couldn't move. So at the end of the game, come off, and I said, like, I need this looked at again. Had it looked at. They went in, tidied it all up again. Come back, played the next Carabao Cup game. Felt the same. Again, just training once a week. Couldn't get through any training. Had another operation to try and help it. Nothing they could do. Then in the next round, we got Liverpool at home. And I said, there's no way I'm not playing that game. So I've done everything I could to be fit, played it. Couldn't walk for the next 2-3 days. Went back to the specialist, and he said, this is the last time I can go in. He said, there's nothing else we can do. If we go in, clear it up, might be able to do something, but when you wake up, you will know your fate, basically. Had the operation. First thing I remember is the surgeon standing in front of me saying, unfortunately, that's you finished. which in a way, it sounds a bit silly, but it was a bit of a relief, to be honest, because I would have just kept going and going, doing anything I could to keep playing. And then it hit me that I will never play another game of football again. And that was hard, very hard to deal with. But yeah, and that was sort of how it sort of ended.
I mean, it it's a strange. I think I can kind of sort of understand what you mean by the relief, because if something is as horrible as it is to have something taken out of your hands, if it is taken out of your hands, it's not like you then have a choice. So you kind of have two options of either crumble or accept it.
Yeah.
And accept it doesn't mean you have to be happy,
Mm.
but I think yeah, you kind of just have to do that. So you've obviously then done your knee in quite badly. It's and you've had to stop. What do the next sort of few months, years look like in terms of
Um,
watching people do what you, in theory, at an age could still do if it wasn't for the injury?
couldn't watch football. I literally couldn't bear to go and watch it. I done a couple of radio like commentaries with BBC Norfolk for the Norwich games. I could get through that because I wasn't actually. It was more work than watching, if that makes sense. So that was fine. I done Sky Sports when Preston played Blackpool as well. Preston were amazing that game. When they played Blackpool, they got me on the pitch and done a farewell presentation. All the crowd were there on their feet. It was incredible. I had my kids on the pitch with me, my wife as well, and they sort of it made me feel like I'd done something special, if that makes sense, rather than just, oh, thanks for everything, see you later. And they were incredible the whole way through as a club. They done everything they could for me.
Yeah, I mean that's fantastic of them. And football clubs do may not always seem like it, but we know they care because we see what they go through, and we've seen some horrific things in recent years where the clubs have stood behind fans and players when they've needed it. That's your experiences. I want to ask one final question on your experiences before we move on to kind of the day-to-day coping and the things that might help people. So if you don't mind me, because obviously you've had varying types of lows. You've had bad patches of form. You've had knee injuries. What was the lowest point for you, and how what helped you through that lowest point?
Um, one of the lowest points for me was actually whilst everything was going great, probably a few years before the injury. It was had the birth of the second child, living away from home, a lot of pressure on like my wife being up there, not really knowing anyone, and um, it was really horrible. Like my football was actually probably the best it's been, but that was my release. That my only release was the games. Hated getting up in the mornings to go to training. Didn't want to get out of bed. And it wasn't until my wife actually said, "I think you need to do something about this and see someone and get some counselling on it." And I was like, "No, don't be silly. I'm just tired. I'm just having a tough patch." And then a few weeks goes down the line, I'm getting worse and worse, like turning to drinking lots. And she was like, "No, you need to do something about it." So contacted the PFA. Within 24 hours, I had a one-to-one counselling session. Um, and I probably had that for 2.5 years, having regular counselling sessions. And it pulled me out of that sort of headspace, which was amazing. Just being able to speak to someone, and it was actually nice to know that I wasn't going to speak to someone about football. I was speaking about everything else, and realized loads of different things that have happened throughout my life that had caused this situation. And it wasn't actually football, which was nice for a change. So that really helped come out of that. And then I just made sure I actually turned vegan for a little while to try and concentrate on my health, which actually was a detriment to me because I couldn't get the protein in. So I lost so much weight, and it affected my performances. So then I had to come off that. But all these little things I just tried to get my head into just to concentrate and focus on something. And yeah, and until then, obviously the injury, I didn't have to deal with anything like that again. But once again, it came back probably twice as hard.
I think you kind of lead me on to a question that reverts back to something you said earlier about there being things more important than football, because we love football. We watch it, we adore it. It's why I do what I do in terms of working with the Canaries Trust, and I watch as many games. I'm a Norwich fan, but I love football as well. And it's interesting to hear you say that your lowest point was actually when your football was best,
Yeah,
because it's a surprise to me because I came into this call knowing about your injury and thinking that's what we are going to talk about because that's what the purpose of the call might be. And actually to hear that you've struggled alongside the football, actually, I think as horrible as it might be for you, and I don't mean to like diminish it, but actually some people might listen to that and go, okay, it might help me. And that's kind of what I've always wanted to do with these is see. And every time we've spoken to a sports person, it's been interesting to hear that actually the sport is, we spoke to Di Green, we spoke to Stuart Webber, and the sport is important, but there's always something that is okay. The sport is what I do, but this other thing is important. And for you, obviously, your family, your wife, and your kids being so far away from an environment that they knew clearly had an effect on you. And it is good to see that you've come out the other side of that, though, because there are many people that would spiral with that. And it sounds like you did have your struggles, but it sounds like you got the help you need, and that's brilliant. In terms of coping with all of that, what kind of coping mechanisms did you have slash do you have?
I think for me, definitely sort of physical exercise is a huge one for me, and actually work. I know it sounds stupid, but I'm putting all my sort of effort and time into trying to help the lads here at the training ground not have to go through the problems that I had. And football isn't all about being out on the grass. You're actually, especially with what I do, you're actually creating adults. And to try and get that message installed to them that it is a game of football. It's not life or death. There is a million other things in the world that are more important than a game of football. Yes, when you step over that white line, you want to go out there, you want to win, you want to play well, and it's important for that hour and a half. But as soon as you step back off that back over that white line, back into the dressing rooms, yes, you've got to go through it. Yes, you've got to try and analyze how you played, but you still have a life to live, and that is more important than anything to do with sport. And I know it sounds silly, but I didn't realize that until probably 28, 29, that life is actually still going on around football. It isn't its own world where that's all that matters. Things still happen, things still go on. And that's why it's so important that you don't just keep it all in, because my release was training every day and playing a game. That got taken away from me and I had no release. So that time between, it's funny you mentioned Stuart Webber, because he was the one that actually called me and said, get yourself into the training ground. I'm not having you sitting at home. He's like, well, there's nothing here for you at the minute, but I want you in, come in, be around it, come and watch training, because I know what's going to happen to you if you just sit at home. And he actually got me in the building, got me off the sofa. I was addicted to morphine, couldn't get off it because it made me feel good. And I was drinking it by the bottle, and that was my sort of release, laying on the sofa drinking morphine. And I was in so much pain, I needed it, but the amounts that I was having was far and above what I actually needed, but it was making me feel good. So that was my release. And Stuart pulled me out of that, got me in the training ground. And then within 2 weeks of me coming into the training ground, both academy goalkeepers leave, and he's like, I need your help. Can you just take this for a couple of weeks? And then I'm still here now.
Yeah, hook, line, and sinker. He got you
Exactly. Yeah.
then.
Yeah.
And in terms of obviously, so what age groups do you kind of coach?
So I'm actually head of academy goalkeeping now this year.
Okay.
So I oversee everything from under sevens all the way to 21s. Um, I only really work with the 18s and 21s. I don't have the skill set or the sort of mindset. There's so many better coaches at the club that better at coaching the younger lads. I try
Yeah.
and get around it. I watch it. I watch the videos back. I watch the games back. Um, but I like to get the lads from when they come in the building full time, to really sort of help teach them what it is, what it takes, and I showed them a lot of the things I'd done wrong in games, a lot of the mistakes in front of tens of thousands of people, just to say, look, it's going to happen. And then I'd make sure that they see every mistake that Premier League goalies make, because no matter how good you are, you're going to make mistakes. And these lads are so scared about making mistakes that it actually makes them have more mistakes. So I try and get the belief into them that, okay, I'm going to make a mistake. Who cares? Like, it's not the end of the world. And the worst thing that can happen if you make a mistake in a game of football is you concede a goal. Um, that is not life or death. That is just playing a game and conceding a goal in a game. So obviously they need to understand the importance of it, and they wouldn't be here if they didn't understand the importance of winning and doing their job. But you have to sort of make it relative to life.
Yeah, and I think that goes obviously your job, for want of a better word, is football. Everyone has their own, but I think you have to kind of understand what your priorities are in life, and often your job is important. I'm one of the rare people that love my job, but ultimately I've got a young family now. And my wife, and there is a balancing act between the two. And my work are brilliant with this, and it sounds like Norwich have been, particularly as a coach, and sounds like Preston were as well. But Norwich have been brilliant with you in allowing you to have that balance and look after that as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, the job requires a lot of hours, a lot of traveling, a lot of a week going weeks on end without a day off, and it is hard. But um, you do it for one thing. It's because I want to help the young goalkeepers and even the outfield players in just to succeed in life. And I think that sometimes I probably put my head into work too much and aren't at home as much as I should be. But I don't think there's many people out there that want to be successful in what they do that don't end up like that. I sort of approach this the same as what I did as when I played. And if you're not doing the work, you're not going to get to where you want to be, and you're not going to sort of hit the heights that you should hit. So I still have that mentality, but my wife definitely does remind me a lot that they are still at home and need to see their dad.
That's good. It's my wife is definitely the same, and I'm incredibly grateful to her for it. Obviously, when we talk about mental health, people, and I totally understand this because I do the same, you gravitate towards the negative, but there are positives. Can you give me something that's been a positive to your mental health through whatever it has been your career, whether it was playing, whether it was family? What's been the positives that you've experienced over the years?
100% being able to speak to my wife about absolutely anything that I'm thinking or feeling. Um, I think I used to bottle it all up because I didn't want to put all the rubbish onto her. And just being able to open up, and we both speak openly about how we're feeling and stuff like that now, and it definitely helps. And also having opening up to my friends. Literally would never ever talk about feelings in my whole life. It was a no go. Like, you don't talk about feelings, you get on with it. And now there's a couple of mates that I have where we actually do just check in and see how we are. Sometimes I'll go months without speaking to my mates, and I'm terrible for keeping in touch with people. But we all know that we're all there for each other when we need each other. And I think that's definitely a positive from going through and hitting the lows that I hit, that actually helps massively. And I think just understanding yourself. My mind was just fully focused on football every single day. I didn't even take time out to think about how I'm feeling or what I'm thinking or what's going on around me. It was just blinkers on. I was just focusing on what I'm doing in football. You step away from that and start to realize everything else that's going on, and there is actually a whole different world out there that actually matters.
You've sort of preempted. So my final question is often, what advice do you have for anyone watching this, whatever walk of life they may be in? You've sort of preempted what I think is going to be your answer anyway, which is to talk. It's the same answer everyone gives because it is one of the things. But obviously either in enriching that from what you've said or adding to that, what is your advice for anyone that might be listening to that is either struggling or knows someone that's struggling?
I think definitely for males, I can only speak for males, obviously, because I am one. But talking to people about your feelings is seen as weak. Is seen as sort of not being strong. But actually, the strongest people actually can talk about things. And after that first conversation you have with people about your feelings and what you're feeling, and telling people, look, I'm struggling, I'm in a hole, whatever it is, it actually just takes a whole cloud off the top of your head, and you feel like a big sigh of relief because you've just emptied that and got it out of you. And now someone that you care about, and hopefully they care about you, is aware of the situation, and it just shares the load. And you're not dumping your stuff on them, because like I said, that's how I used to feel. I used to feel like I can't speak to them about it because I don't want to dump how I'm feeling on them and make them feel bad. You're actually just, one, you're helping yourself, and two, you're helping your friend, your wife, whoever it is, to understand why you're acting like you are, why you might be grumpy, why you might not want to do something, why you don't want to get out of bed. Now they're aware of it. They don't just think you're being lazy or rude or whatever it is. You're actually helping each other. So get that first conversation out of the way, because once you got your first one out of the way, it makes things a hell of a lot easier. I couldn't dream of coming on here talking to you about this 5 years ago, 6 years ago. I'd have been like, no, everything's great. I had a great career. Everything was amazing, which would be a massive lie. So yeah, just that first conversation just changes everything.
I mean, I'm incredibly grateful that you have come on here. Obviously, your mental well-being and mental health is a personal journey. Everyone is going to be different, but you've certainly in your years been through a lot already, far more than some, far less than others. But you've been through a lot. But it sounds to me, from what you've said, that you're in a decent place right now, and sounds like there's a lot of people that can be credited to help you. You had the FSA, Stuart Webber, you've mentioned, obviously your wife, the club with Norwich and Preston as well. And it sounds like you're doing really well. And certainly from my point of view, I'm really pleased to see can a lot of what you've spoken about today is a surprise to me, and I suspect will be a surprise to many that not know the detail of what you've been through. So well done for getting to where you are, mate. It's fantastic.
No, thank you. It's, like I said, it's nice to come and speak about it, because even if it makes just one person have a conversation and gets them out of the situation that they're in, then it's worth it. So I appreciate being asked to come on.
No, as I said to you before we started the call, it's a great honor of mine to have you on, and this is kind of why I do this thing. If we help one person, it's worth the half an hour that I spend with you talking. So that's kind of all I want from this. Really, is if one person sees it and decides to open up to someone, then it's done its job.
Yeah.
So, Declan, thank you so much for taking the time to join us for this. It's been really eye opening. Not going to lie to you, been really eye opening. But it's been really like humbling to talk to you as well. And hear what you've been through, and hopefully, yeah, we can help someone. But yeah, as I say, thank you so much for giving us your time to do this.
No, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Okay. For everyone watching and listening, thank you so much for taking the time. Obviously, there are lots of places and people you can talk to out there. We've got on the Canary Trust website various charities that you can talk to, but even just talking to friends, family can help. Declan has been an amazing guest, and we hope to see you all soon. So, thank you very much, everyone, and we'll see you for the next one.